Weird. It's not the Doctor who's so sorry. That's clearly an editorial oversight. Welcome to the Time Treadmill. I'm Ron, and these are my sweaty thoughts about Doctor Who. The Rise of the Cybermen aired on the 40th anniversary of the first appearance of the Cybermen in the 10th planet. And that anniversary gets a sly nod in the story by this story taking place on Jackie Tyler's 40th birthday. Although she insists that it's her 39th. Of course she does. This story and the next one take place on a parallel Earth that's frequently referred to as Pete's World by Doctor Who fans. It's a parallel reality where Rose's father, Pete, lived, although Rose herself was never born. Pete and Jackie are still married, although apparently not for much longer. Pete's crazy schemes and ideas actually paid off, and he's now one of the wealthiest men in the world. And, by the way, on this planet, there's another Mickey, except he's Ricky. So all of the times that the Ninth Doctor called Mickey Ricky, here he is. There are a couple things that interest me about this story, aside from it being the first appearance of the Cybermen in the modern series. And the first is that the director, Graham Harper, is the only director from the classic series to have ever returned to direct modern-era episodes. Graham Harper is best known in the classic series for directing stories like The Warrior's Gate and The Caves of Androzani. Phenomenal stories, and he's a great director. And I suspect at this point of time, with so much distance from the classic series, there just aren't any directors left from the classic series to come forward and work in New Who. So he may well be the only director that ever gets credits for working both the classic and the modern series. And that's kind of cool. He'll go on to direct several more modern episodes, and we'll get to those in a little while. The other interesting thing about this story that I kind of like to ponder is the fact that originally the character of Pete Tyler back in the previous season with the Ninth Doctor was supposed to be played by Simon Pegg, and he was unable to play that role due to scheduling conflicts, and so he took a part in a different story, and thus history changed. But I try to imagine a parallel Doctor Who universe in which Simon Pegg was Pete Tyler. And I wonder, could they have gotten him back for a two-part story in this season? By 2006, Simon Pegg had really started blowing up internationally with the release of Shaun of the Dead. And I really wonder if just logistically he would have been available for a two-part story, and that would have altered this story dramatically. Not that I dislike the actor who plays Pete Tyler. He's perfectly fine. It's hard to imagine anyone else in the role. But then again, Simon Pegg, can you imagine? Wow. The specific thing I remember about this story when it first aired in the US was the edits that were made. The Ninth Doctor stories were not initially picked up for broadcast in the US at all. I only was able to watch them through kind of shady, downloaded rips of the broadcasts in England. But with the advent of the 10th Doctor, the Sci-Fi Channel in the US picked up Doctor Who and would air these episodes, but they were aired months later, although 2006 was largely pre-social media, and so the leaks weren't as rampant as they would be today. But that wasn't even really the problem. The problem was that the Sci-Fi Channel would air them in a 1-hour time slot and insisted on more than 15 minutes of commercials during that broadcast. And Rise of the Cybermen ran over 47 minutes, which meant that about 2.5 minutes of footage from the story had to be trimmed out. Pieces here and there, establishing shots, tracking shots, and most notably, the scene in which a group of homeless men are upgraded into becoming Cybermen, while the controller character plays "The Lion Sleeps Tonight" loudly over the sound of their screams. It's an incredibly haunting sequence. In the original broadcast, you see the men being marched into the chamber, you see the whirling knives and blades as you hear their screams, and then the controller turns on the music and listens to that for a while, and there's a slow dolly shot backwards and a transition to an exterior of the factory as the music fades out and the screams continue. It's a haunting shot. In the American broadcast version, as soon as the men march through the door and start screaming, that's where the scene was cut, and that entire sequence was removed. There were several other cuts like that made throughout the American broadcast of that season, but that particular scene was, to my mind, the most egregious, and I was so overjoyed when BBC America picked up the rights to the program and began airing it. Although that wouldn't happen for another couple seasons, if I remember right. I do specifically remember for Series 3, I was still downloading torrents of the show overnight after it aired on Saturday so that I could watch them on Sunday morning. And then subsequently, to soothe my shame of being a digital pirate, I would of course buy the DVD box sets as soon as they were available. So BBC got my money. But until the episodes began being aired day and date in the US, that was really my only option. Anyway, as they say, I digress. Rise of the Cybermen, great reintroduction of the Cybermen. Great new design that reintroduces the teardrop motif that had been missing from them from Earthshock forward. And also great to see Noel Clarke as Mickey and Ricky finally get something he can really sink his teeth into. He's come a long way since Plastic Mickey saying pizza, pizza, pizza in rows. Anyway, that's all today. Tomorrow I will wrap up this two-part story with the Age of Steel. I'll see you then.